He did this, and his life changed forever. He was always just an ordinary tech billionaire, if there is such a thing. His days passed by launching rockets and building electric cars. Nothing hinted at the profound shift coming. But one day, something happened that turned everything upside down. At first, it seemed like a coincidence. Just an unexpected invitation from an 87-year-old Amish elder named Eli Zook to visit his community in Lancaster County. But then, things started to get even stranger. Seconds felt like an eternity as Elon Musk stood in that simple wooden workshop, watching the elderly man demonstrate a water pump system that challenged everything he thought he knew about innovation. And then, at that very moment when it seemed like his worldview couldn't be shaken any further, Eli revealed his secret. Decades of hidden engineering studies that had revolutionized his community while preserving their way of life. But the most unbelievable part happened after that. It was so incredible that if someone had told him before, he never would have believed it. The lesson he learned from this humble Amish elder would completely transform his approach to technology and human progress, leading to one of the most unexpected partnerships in modern history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. In the heart of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where horse-drawn buggies still trace well-worn paths through rolling farmland, an unprecedented gathering has drawn both curious whispers and concerned glances. Who would have thought that one of the world's most prominent technology innovators would stand shoulder to shoulder with an Amish elder before their community? Yet here they were, two figures from vastly different worlds united by an unlikely vision. Elon Musk shifted uncomfortably in his plain black suit, chosen specifically to respect Amish sensibilities, while 87-year-old Eli Zook's weathered hands steadied themselves on his walking stick. The community hall, typically reserved for Sunday services and important announcements, now hosted an assembly that would challenge centuries of tradition. Through the lens of her carefully positioned camera, Vanessa Cho captured the subtle tensions rippling through the gathered crowd. Hannah Zook, Eli's granddaughter, sat in the women's section, her bright eyes betraying an excitement she struggled to contain. Her fingers, calloused from farm work yet precise from countless hours of secret tinkering, twisted the fabric of her plain dress. She caught her grandfather's encouraging nod, a gesture that carried the weight of their shared dreams and hidden conversations about the future of their community. Caleb Miller's stern presence commanded attention from the elders' bench. His deep-set eyes carried the weight of responsibility for preserving their way of life, scrutinizing every word as Elon began to speak. The tech mogul's voice, usually confident in boardrooms and on global stages, adopted a more measured tone in this humble setting. "I come before you not to change who you are," Elon began, his words carefully chosen after weeks of consultation with Eli, "but to explore how we might learn from each other." The statement hung in the air, met with a mixture of skepticism and cautious interest. Vanessa's camera panned across the faces, capturing the moment traditional Amish values confronted modern innovation. Eli stepped forward, his presence lending credibility to the unusual proposal. His voice, carrying the authority of decades of community leadership, shared how this initiative would respect their ways while opening new possibilities for their young people. He spoke of a program that would blend traditional craftsmanship with sustainable technology, all while maintaining their core values. The assembly stirred when Hannah was mentioned as one of the first potential students. Her recent invention, a modified water pump that had significantly improved their community's irrigation system, served as a testament to what could be achieved when Amish ingenuity met modern knowledge. Caleb's expression remained unreadable, though those who knew him well noticed a slight softening around his eyes. Vanessa observed through her viewfinder as Elon described the specialized curriculum they had developed. It would focus on practical applications, sustainable technologies, and problems that directly affected their community. The program would respect the Amish rejection of unnecessary technology while exploring innovations that aligned with their values of simplicity and self-sufficiency. As the presentation continued, the dynamics between the key figures became increasingly apparent. Eli's occasional glances at his granddaughter revealed both pride and concern for her future. Elon's respectful deference to Amish customs showed how far he'd come from his initial skepticism about the project. Even Caleb's rigid posture gradually relaxed as the practical benefits for the community became clearer. The relationship between Eli and Elon had evolved from their first meeting months ago. What began as a curious visit by the tech entrepreneur had transformed into a genuine partnership, with each man finding unexpected wisdom in the other's perspective. Their educational initiative represented more than just a program. It symbolized a bridge between two worlds that many had assumed could never meet. Hannah's presence in the room embodied the future they envisioned. Her innovative spirit, nurtured in secret by her grandfather and now potentially finding legitimate expression, represented hope for maintaining Amish values while adapting to changing times. Through Vanessa's lens, this moment would later be recognized as the beginning of what she would call the quiet revolution in her documentary. As the presentation drew to a close, the silence in the room carried the weight of impending change. Would this unprecedented collaboration between an Amish community and a tech visionary open new possibilities while preserving ancient wisdom? The answer lay in the complex web of relationships, trust, and mutual respect that had brought them to this moment, and in the choices they would make moving forward. The clip-clop of horse hooves against packed dirt marked time, as Elon Musk's sleek Tesla sat incongruously parked beside the wooden Amish schoolhouse. Who would have thought that one of the world's most prominent tech innovators would find himself seeking wisdom in a community that deliberately chose to live without electricity? Behind her camera, Vanessa Cho adjusted her focus, capturing the moment when Elon first stepped from his vehicle into the autumn morning. The tech billionaire's usual confident stride faltered slightly as he took in the simple beauty of the one-room schoolhouse, its weathered boards telling stories of generations of learning within its walls. Inside, Eli Zook's weathered hands traced the grain of his wooden desk, his 87 years etched in every deliberate movement. The morning light filtered through plain glass windows, casting long shadows across the empty student benches. Hannah, his granddaughter, arranged simple materials for the day's lessons, her quick movements betraying an energy that seemed at odds with the room's stillness. Who would have guessed that beneath her traditional dress beat the heart of an inventor? The door creaked open and Elon entered, followed by Vanessa's watchful lens. The contrast between the two men could not have been more striking. Elon in his modern business attire, Eli in his simple black clothing and full beard. Yet something passed between them in that first glance, a spark of recognition that transcended their obvious differences. "Welcome to our humble school," Eli spoke, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had spent decades shaping young minds. "Though I suspect you'll find our methods quite different from what you're accustomed to." Caleb Miller, who had been observing from the corner, stepped forward with measured caution. His presence served as a reminder of the delicate balance this visit threatened to disturb. How would this modern intrusion affect their carefully preserved way of life? Hannah's eyes darted between the visitors and her grandfather, her hands unconsciously fidgeting with a piece of chalk. In Elon's presence, she saw a reflection of her own curiosity about the world beyond their community's boundaries. What innovations lay dormant in her mind, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Elon moved through the room, his fingers trailing along the simple wooden desks. "Your students learn without computers, without smartphones, without the internet," he mused. "Yet I'm told they grasp complex engineering concepts. How is this possible?" Eli's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Perhaps, friend, the question isn't how we teach without technology, but what technology has made us forget about learning." He gestured to the chalkboard where Hannah had drawn intricate mechanical diagrams. "Our methods may be simple, but the principles, physics, mathematics, engineering, these are timeless." Vanessa's camera captured the subtle shift in Elon's expression as he studied the drawings. Were these the same principles that had guided his own innovations? Stripped down to their purest form, the morning light strengthened, illuminating dust motes that danced between the two men. Caleb remained by the door, his presence a silent reminder of the community's watchful eye. Yet even his stern countenance showed hints of curiosity about this unusual meeting. "Show me," Elon said simply, pulling up a student's chair. The simple request carried weight. Here was a man who had revolutionized electric cars and space travel, asking to learn from an Amish teacher. Hannah began setting out materials for the day's lesson: wooden blocks, string, simple pulleys. Each item seemed to hold a story, a potential for understanding that went beyond its humble appearance. What mysteries of the physical world could be unlocked with these basic tools? The scene unfolding in the schoolhouse represented more than just a meeting of minds. It was a confluence of worlds, each with its own wisdom to share. Could the simplicity of Amish education offer insights into the future of learning? Would this unlikely partnership spark a revolution in how we think about technology and teaching? As Eli began his demonstration, Vanessa's camera rolled silently, documenting every nuance of this extraordinary encounter. The quiet revolution had begun, not with fanfare or proclamations, but with a simple lesson in an Amish schoolhouse, where the past and future sat down to learn from each other. As morning dew settled on the Lancaster County fields, Eli Zook led Elon Musk along a narrow path behind the schoolhouse, their footsteps creating soft impressions in the dampened earth. Vanessa Cho followed at a respectful distance, her camera capturing the unlikely pair, a tech billionaire and an elderly Amish man, engaged in animated conversation about the principles of mechanical engineering. What would you say, Mr. Musk, if I told you that simplicity and complexity aren't necessarily at odds? Eli's weathered hands gestured as he spoke, his eyes twinkling with the same enthusiasm that had captured Elon's attention during their first meeting at the schoolhouse. The question hung in the air, challenging the assumptions that had brought Elon to this community. They approached what appeared to be an ordinary barn, its wooden boards aged by decades of Pennsylvania weather. Eli paused at the entrance, his hand resting on the rough-hewn door handle. Before we go inside, I must ask for your discretion. What I'm about to show you is known only to a select few in our community. The gravity in his voice made Elon lean forward slightly, his curiosity piqued. Inside, sunlight filtered through gaps in the wooden slats, illuminating what could only be described as a marriage between old-world craftsmanship and innovative engineering. Workbenches lined the walls covered with hand-drawn technical diagrams and partially completed projects. Wooden gears intermeshed with precision-carved components, creating mechanisms that defied the typical perception of Amish technology. For 60 years I've maintained this space, Eli explained, moving toward a particularly intricate device that resembled a water pump system. During my youth, I spent 2 years studying engineering in secret at a nearby college. The knowledge I gained has helped our community in ways they don't always realize. Elon moved through the workshop, his fingers trailing along the edge of a workbench, examining the detailed drawings that could have been at home in any modern engineering facility. These designs, they're remarkably sophisticated. He picked up a sketch showing an irrigation system that used principles of fluid dynamics to operate without electricity. Vanessa's camera whirred softly in the background, documenting the moment when Eli revealed a hidden compartment beneath a floorboard. Inside lay textbooks, worn copies of engineering fundamentals, physics, and mathematics texts dating back decades. Knowledge, Mr. Musk, doesn't threaten faith. It enhances our understanding of God's creation. The conversation shifted as Eli described how he had secretly taught these principles to interested community members, including his granddaughter Hannah. She has her own corner here, he said, gesturing to a workstation where several projects lay partially completed. Like you, she sees possibilities where others see limitations. A sudden creak of floorboards near the entrance caused both men to turn. Hannah stood in the doorway, her expression shifting from surprise to concern at finding her grandfather's sanctuary exposed to outsiders. The moment crystallized the tension between preservation and progress that defined their community's struggle. "Come in, Hannah," Eli called warmly. "Mr. Musk was just admiring your water filtration design." The young woman stepped forward hesitantly, her eyes moving between her grandfather and Elon, seeking reassurance that her family's secret was safe with these outsiders. Elon moved toward Hannah's workbench, genuinely impressed by the elegant simplicity of her designs. "You've solved the pressure distribution problem that plagued similar systems," he noted, pointing to a specific detail in her drawings. Have you considered how this might be scaled for larger communities? The conversation that followed transcended the cultural divide between them, focusing instead on the universal language of innovation and problem-solving. Eli watched with quiet satisfaction as his granddaughter engaged with one of the world's leading innovators, their discussion ranging from practical applications to theoretical possibilities. As the morning progressed, the workshop became more than just a hidden room. It transformed into a bridge between worlds where the wisdom of simplicity met the drive for innovation. Vanessa's camera captured the subtle shifts in expression, the moments of shared understanding, and the gradual dissolution of preconceptions on all sides. However, the sound of approaching footsteps on the path outside brought a sudden tension to the room. Through the gaps in the wooden walls, they could see Caleb Miller's distinctive gait approaching the barn. The question now wasn't just about preserving Eli's secret workshop. It was about defending the delicate balance between tradition and progress that this hidden space represented. In the warm glow of a late afternoon sun, Eli Zook's hands moved with practiced precision across her latest invention, a grain sorting device that merged traditional Amish craftsmanship with surprisingly sophisticated engineering principles. Elon Musk watched intently, his usual rapid-fire thoughts slowing to appreciate the elegant simplicity before him. Who would have thought that in this simple Amish community, innovation could flourish so organically? Hannah's device utilized a series of carefully calibrated wooden channels and natural air currents to separate damaged grain from healthy kernels. The mechanism operated without electricity, yet achieved efficiency rates that rivaled modern equipment. As she demonstrated the sorting process, her eyes lit up with the same passion Elon recognized in his own engineers. But unlike them, Hannah had developed her skills in secret, working with limited resources and under the constant pressure of community scrutiny. Vanessa Cho's camera captured the moment silently, her lens focusing on the subtle interactions between the tech billionaire and the young Amish inventor. Through her viewfinder, she observed how Elon's typical assertive demeanor had softened into genuine curiosity as he peppered Hannah with questions about her design process. The young woman's responses revealed years of careful observation and experimental refinement. Eli Zook stood nearby, his weathered face bearing a mixture of pride and concern. He had nurtured Hannah's innovative spirit while understanding the delicate balance required to maintain their community's ways. His own past as a secret engineering student had taught him the weight of such choices. Would Hannah's path lead her to similar crossroads? The demonstration drew unexpected attention from other community members working in nearby fields. Among them, Caleb Miller observed from a distance, his stern expression masking internal conflict. The grain sorter's practical value to the community was undeniable, yet it represented a departure from traditional methods. How much innovation could their way of life absorb before fundamental changes occurred? As Hannah explained the refinements she'd made to her design over multiple iterations, Elon recognized patterns familiar from his own journey: the constant drive to improve, the willingness to learn from failure, the ability to see solutions where others saw only problems. But unlike his high-tech ventures, Hannah's innovations emerged from a deep connection to her community's needs and values. The grain sorter represented more than just technical achievement. It embodied the complex relationship between tradition and progress. Each wooden component had been carefully selected and shaped by Hannah's hands, following the same woodworking techniques passed down through generations. Yet the final assembly reflected principles of fluid dynamics and mechanical engineering that would have impressed university professors. Vanessa's documentary captured subtle moments that told a deeper story. Hannah's quick glances toward Caleb's distant figure, Eli's gentle nods of encouragement, Elon's growing appreciation for the ingenuity born of constraint. Through her lens, the grain sorter became a symbol of broader questions facing not just the Amish community, but society as a whole. How could progress and tradition coexist? What was gained or lost in the pursuit of innovation? The demonstration concluded as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the field. Hannah's invention had done more than sort grain. It had planted seeds of change in the minds of all present. Even Caleb, despite his reservations, could not deny the potential benefits to their community's harvest. But questions lingered in the cooling evening air. How would these seeds of change grow? What harvest would they ultimately bring? Elon found himself re-evaluating his own assumptions about innovation and progress. In the sophisticated simplicity of Hannah's creation, he saw a different kind of technological advancement, one that grew from deep roots of community and tradition, rather than disrupting them. Could there be lessons here for his own ventures? What might the world gain from building bridges between these seemingly opposite approaches to progress? The autumn mist hung low over the Amish farmland as Caleb Miller strode purposefully toward Eli Zook's workshop, his weathered hands clenched with determination. The previous day's demonstration of Hannah's grain sorter had sent ripples through the community, and Caleb could no longer contain his concerns about the direction their small society was taking. Inside the workshop, Eli sat at his workbench, carefully examining one of Hannah's technical drawings. The sound of approaching footsteps caused him to slowly fold the paper and tuck it into his shirt pocket. At 87, Eli had weathered many storms of change within the community, but something about Caleb's early morning visit suggested this confrontation would be different. "Brother Eli," Caleb began, his voice carrying the weight of his position as community leader, "we need to discuss what happened yesterday." The tension between tradition and progress hung heavy in the air, much like the morning fog outside. Eli's response came with the measured patience of his years. "I assume this is about Hannah's demonstration?" His eyes, still sharp despite his age, met Caleb's with quiet confidence. The younger man's presence reminded him of similar confrontations from his own youth, when his secret engineering studies had nearly led to his expulsion from the community. Caleb paced the workshop, his fingers trailing along the simple wooden tools that represented their traditional way of life. "It's not just about the demonstration, Eli. It's about the English visitor, about Hannah's increasing interest in their ways, about your encouragement of all this." He paused, turning to face the elder. "Do you not see how this threatens everything we've built?" The conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the gravel outside. Vanessa Cho, ever present with her camera, had arrived early to document the community's morning activities. Through her lens, she captured the subtle shift in both men's postures as they acknowledged her presence while continuing their discussion. "Our ways are not so fragile that they cannot withstand examination, Caleb," Eli responded, his voice carrying the wisdom of decades. "Remember, our ancestors chose this life. They chose it with full knowledge of what they were leaving behind. It was an informed decision, not one made in ignorance." The mention of choice struck a chord with Caleb, who had been grappling with his own observations of Elon Musk's impact on their community. The outsider's presence had stirred something unexpected, not just resistance, but curiosity about how their traditional wisdom might actually benefit the modern world. "But where does it end, Eli?" Caleb's voice softened, revealing the genuine concern beneath his stern exterior. "First it's a grain sorter, then what? Computers? Smartphones? Electric cars?" The last reference clearly pointed to their famous visitor's influence. Eli stood slowly, his movements deliberate as he retrieved a worn journal from a shelf. "Let me show you something, Caleb." He opened the book to reveal detailed sketches from his own youth, designs for farm equipment that merged Amish principles with efficient engineering. "These were my struggles 50 years ago. The same questions, the same fears." The revelation created a subtle shift in the workshop's atmosphere. Caleb found himself drawn to the yellowed pages, recognizing the familiar struggle between preservation and adaptation. Through Vanessa's lens, the moment captured the essence of their community's ongoing dialogue with change. Meanwhile, Hannah had positioned herself just outside the workshop door, her heart racing as she listened to the discussion about her future. Her grandfather's defense of innovation within tradition resonated deeply, echoing her own internal conflicts. The previous day's interaction with Elon had only intensified her desire to bridge both worlds. Our strength lies not in blind resistance, Eli continued, but in thoughtful discernment. Hannah's grain sorter uses no electricity, requires no modern power source. It respects our ways while solving a real problem for our community. His words carried the weight of experience, of someone who had walked the delicate line between tradition and innovation. Caleb remained silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on Eli's journal. The morning light streaming through the workshop windows illuminated the dust motes dancing between them, a visual reminder of the suspended state of their community, caught between preservation and evolution. The conversation was far from over, but something had shifted. The rigid lines of opposition had softened into something more nuanced, more contemplative. Outside, Vanessa continued filming, her camera capturing the subtle interplay of shadow and light, tradition and change, resistance and acceptance that defined this crucial moment in their community's journey. What neither man fully realized was how this morning's confrontation would set the stage for even more significant challenges to come. As the sun rose higher over the Pennsylvania countryside, the question remained, how would their community navigate the increasing intersection of their traditional values with the modern world's inexorable march forward? As morning dew settled on the farmland, Eli Zook sat with Elon Musk on the front porch of his modest home, the tension from Caleb's earlier confrontation still lingering in the air. The tech mogul's usual rapid-fire questions had given way to an unusual silence as Eli began sharing a story he'd kept close to his heart for nearly 7 decades. In 1954, I received a letter that would change my life, Eli began, his weathered hands folding and unfolding a piece of paper that had long since yellowed with age. Massachusetts Institute of Technology had offered me a full scholarship based on some engineering designs I'd submitted through a correspondence course. Elon leaned forward, his typical restlessness replaced by genuine curiosity. Vanessa Cho, positioned discreetly in the corner of the porch, adjusted her camera to capture this unexpected revelation. The morning light caught the subtle expressions, crossing Eli's face as he continued his tale. I had been secretly studying advanced mathematics and engineering through borrowed textbooks, solving complex equations by candlelight after my chores were done. The acceptance letter represented everything I thought I wanted, a chance to fully embrace the world of innovation and technology. The parallels between young Eli and Hannah were unmistakable, and Elon found himself wondering about the choices that shaped both their paths. What would Hannah's future hold? Would she face the same crossroads her grandfather had encountered? My father discovered the letter, Eli continued, his voice carrying a mix of old pain and hard-won wisdom. But instead of anger, he showed me something I hadn't expected: understanding. He asked me one question that would echo through the decades. Will all that knowledge make thee closer to God and community or further away? Vanessa's camera captured the moment Elon's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation. The billionaire entrepreneur, known for pushing the boundaries of technology, found himself confronting an entirely different perspective on progress and purpose. I spent 3 days in deep reflection, Eli said, gazing across his farm where Hannah could be seen teaching younger children about the mechanics of their water pump. I realized that my fascination with engineering wasn't about the machines themselves, but about solving problems to help others. I could do that here, within our community, without losing our way of life. The decision to stay had shaped not only Eli's life, but generations that followed. He had channeled his engineering mind into improving farming techniques, developing more efficient water systems, and teaching others to understand the elegant simplicity of mechanical principles, all while remaining true to Amish values. That's why I understand Hannah's struggle, Eli explained, his eyes following his granddaughter's animated gestures as she demonstrated the pump's operation. And why I understand thy drive to push boundaries, Elon. The question isn't about choosing between progress and tradition. It's about finding wisdom to know how each serves the other. Elon, who had built his empire on disrupting traditional industries, found himself questioning his own assumptions about progress. Could there be wisdom in deliberate limitation? What insights might be gained from choosing not to implement every possible technological advancement? But how do you reconcile your knowledge with your community's restrictions? Elon asked, genuinely puzzled. Surely there are times when you could solve problems more efficiently with modern technology. Eli smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he'd wrestled with this question countless times. The restrictions force creativity within boundaries. Like a river that finds new paths when it meets a rock, we discover solutions that might be overlooked. If we always chose the easiest path. The conversation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. Caleb Miller, still carrying the authority of his morning confrontation, appeared at the edge of the porch. His presence added an unspoken weight to Eli's words about balancing tradition and progress. What would happen when these competing worldviews finally collided? Could Hannah navigate the same choice her grandfather had faced, in a world where the pull of technology was even stronger? And how would this glimpse into a different kind of wisdom affect Elon's own vision of the future? Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The answers to these questions would unfold in unexpected ways as the sun continued its climb over the Lancaster County farmland, casting long shadows across the boundary between two very different worlds. As dawn broke over the Lancaster countryside, Hannah Zook paced nervously in her grandfather's workshop, her heart racing as she contemplated the magnitude of what she was about to share. Through the small window, she watched Elon's Tesla roll up the gravel driveway, the modern machine looking starkly out of place against the pastoral backdrop. What would the tech mogul think of her crude inventions? Would he dismiss them as primitive, attempts at innovation, or worse, mock the simplicity of her designs? These questions had plagued her since she'd made the decision to reveal her secret collection. Hannah's inventions represented years of careful observation and problem-solving, each piece born from a specific need within her community. There was the modified butter churn that reduced the strain on aging arms, the innovative irrigation system that saved water during dry seasons, and the clever mechanical lift that helped the elderly climb into buggies with dignity. Each creation respected the ordnung's restrictions while subtly pushing its boundaries. Elon entered the workshop alone, having convinced Vanessa to give them privacy for this moment. His eyes immediately took in the organized chaos of the space, bits of wood, metal, and leather arranged in careful patterns that only made sense to their creator. The scene reminded him of his own early workshops, where countless rockets and electric car prototypes had failed before success. "I've never shown anyone except grandfather," Hannah said softly, moving toward a locked cabinet in the corner. Her hands trembled slightly as she retrieved a key from beneath a loose floorboard. The cabinet's hinges creaked as she opened it, revealing shelves lined with curious contraptions. Elon approached slowly, his usual rapid-fire thoughts quieting as he examined each invention. He picked up what appeared to be a modified oil lamp, turning it over in his hands. "Tell me about this one," he said, his voice carrying genuine curiosity rather than the judgment Hannah had feared. As Hannah explained her designs, their conversation flowed naturally into the realm of engineering principles. She described how she'd studied the movement of water through creek beds to design her irrigation system, and how watching birds build nests had inspired her modular storage solutions. Her innovations weren't born from textbooks or formal education, but from careful observation of the natural world and a deep understanding of her community's needs. What struck Elon most was the elegant simplicity of Hannah's solutions. Where his own approach often involved cutting-edge technology, her inventions relied on basic mechanical principles and readily available materials. Yet both paths led to the same destination, solving human problems. The morning light strengthened as they moved through her collection, casting long shadows across the workshop floor. Hannah grew more animated with each explanation, her initial nervousness replaced by passionate enthusiasm. She shared her struggles with balancing her drive to innovate against the community's expectations, a challenge that resonated deeply with Elon's own experiences of pushing against established norms. "But how do you test them?" Elon asked, examining a particularly clever device designed to help with the harvest. Surely someone would notice. Hannah's eyes sparkled with mischief as she explained her method of introducing improvements gradually, allowing the community to adapt without realizing the extent of the changes. It was a delicate dance of progress and tradition. one that required as much social intelligence as technical skill. The conversation shifted to the future, though neither mentioned the modern world explicitly. Instead, they discussed the universal principles of innovation, the importance of failure, the value of persistence, and the need to serve a greater purpose beyond mere technical achievement. As Hannah carefully returned her inventions to their hiding place, Elon noticed a half-finished project on her workbench. The incomplete device sparked a discussion about the iterative nature of creation, leading them to share stories of failed attempts and unexpected breakthroughs. Their different worlds merged in these moments of shared understanding, transcending the superficial barriers of lifestyle and culture. The morning's revelation had shifted something fundamental in their dynamic. Hannah was no longer just Eli's granddaughter or a curious Amish girl. She was a fellow innovator, speaking the universal language of problem-solving and creation. And Elon found himself questioning his assumptions about progress, wondering if perhaps true innovation wasn't always about adding complexity, but sometimes about finding elegance in simplicity. What would happen if Hannah's innovative spirit were unleashed in the wider world? Or was she perhaps exactly where she needed to be, creating change from within while preserving the values that gave her work its unique perspective? These questions lingered unspoken between them as the morning drew to a close, adding another layer to the complex tapestry of relationships and revelations that had begun to unfold in this unexpected corner of Pennsylvania. Whispers spread through Lancaster County like ripples across a wheat field after Hannah's inventions became known to a select few. Caleb Miller, his weathered face creased with concern, moved purposefully from farm to farm, gathering the elders and respected community members in small, hushed meetings. The revelation of Hannah Zook's mechanical endeavors represented more than just a young woman's hobby. It symbolized a crack in the foundation of their carefully preserved way of life. What began as quiet conversations over fresh-baked bread and coffee soon evolved into more formal gatherings at the Miller homestead. Caleb's voice, usually measured and calm during Sunday services, carried new urgency as he addressed the growing circle of concerned neighbors. "Our ways have preserved us through centuries," he would remind them, his words heavy with tradition. "Each small compromise weakens the walls that protect our children." The presence of Elon Musk in their community had already stirred unease, but Hannah's secret workshop represented something far more troubling to the conservative members. How many other young people might be harboring similar interests? What would become of their simple way of life if innovation took root alongside their traditional practices? Eli Zook watched these developments with growing concern, recognizing the familiar patterns that had once forced him to abandon his own engineering studies decades ago. The weight of his secret education seemed to press more heavily on his shoulders as he observed Caleb's mounting influence. Would history repeat itself through his granddaughter? Vanessa Cho's camera captured the subtle shifts in community dynamics, the way conversations would halt when certain members approached, the careful distance some families began keeping from the Zooks, the worried glances exchanged during shared meals. Through her lens, the invisible lines of tension became visible, etching themselves across the peaceful landscape of their rural life. Meanwhile, Elon found himself in an unexpected position. His presence had inadvertently catalyzed these tensions, yet he recognized something profound in the community's struggle. The same questions that plagued the Amish elders echoed in the halls of tech companies and government offices worldwide. How does society balance progress with preservation? When does innovation become disruption? Hannah, caught in the center of this quiet storm, continued her work with even greater discretion. Her grandfather's workshop became both sanctuary and symbol, a place where the old and new worlds collided in ways that challenged everyone's assumptions. The simple tools of her ancestors lay beside her carefully crafted innovations, each piece telling its own story of adaptation and respect for tradition. Caleb's influence grew steadily, but so did an unexpected undercurrent of curiosity among some community members. Not everyone shared his strict interpretation of their ways. Some remembered their own youthful questions, their own moments of wondering about the world beyond their fields. These subtle divisions began to surface in small ways. A pointed question during a community meeting, A quiet word of support to the Zooks, a thoughtful pause before agreeing with Caleb's assertions. The documentary crew, under Vanessa's careful direction, captured these nuanced interactions with remarkable sensitivity. Their presence, though minimal, served as a mirror reflecting the community's struggles back to itself. How many times throughout history had similar scenes played out? In other communities facing change? What made this moment different? As tensions continued to build, Eli found himself returning more frequently to the lessons of his own past. The engineering textbooks he'd studied in secret seemed to whisper new wisdom now. Perhaps the true test of their community's strength lay not in its ability to resist change, but in its capacity to examine change thoughtfully and intentionally. Could there be a middle path between preservation and progress? The question hung in the air like morning mist over their fields, refusing simple answers or easy resolution. Each character in this unfolding drama carried their own version of truth, their own vision of the future, their own understanding of what it meant to honor their heritage while facing an ever-changing world. How would they navigate these waters without losing sight of their shared shores? Through her camera lens, Vanessa Cho witnessed the delicate dance of tradition and progress unfolding within the Amish community. Her documentary footage revealed layers of complexity that even she hadn't anticipated when Elon Musk first hired her for this unconventional project. What began as a simple documentation of Musk's visit had evolved into something far more profound. A story of human connection transcending the boundaries of time and technology. One particularly moving scene captured Eli Zook and his granddaughter, Hannah, working together in his workshop, their hands moving in synchronized motion as they repaired an old water pump. Their conversation, barely audible above the gentle clicking of tools, revealed the deep understanding between them. Hannah's questions about mechanical principles were met with Eli's patient explanations, each response carefully wrapped in parables and practical wisdom that bridged their two worlds. Vanessa's camera caught the subtle ways Elon Musk had begun to adapt to the community's rhythm. The tech mogul, known for his rapid-fire speech and constant digital connectivity, now moved with measured steps and spoke with deliberate patience. During morning meetings with Eli, Musk would often arrive before sunrise, sitting in contemplative silence as the elder worked on his daily tasks. What conversations passed between them in those quiet moments? The question lingered in Vanessa's mind as she observed their growing rapport. The tension within the community remained palpable, especially when Caleb Miller passed by the workshop. His presence caused visible shifts in behavior. Hannah's shoulders would tense, Eli's voice would lower, and even Musk's typically confident demeanor would take on a more cautious note. Yet Vanessa's footage revealed something unexpected in Caleb's expressions. Moments of curiosity quickly masked by stern disapproval, suggesting an internal struggle between duty and wonder. Through her lens, Vanessa documented the subtle ways technology had already integrated into Amish life, despite the community's apparent rejection of modern conveniences. Simple machines, carefully maintained and thoughtfully employed, demonstrated an understanding of engineering principles that surprised even Musk. How had this community managed to preserve the essence of innovation while avoiding its excesses? The documentary began to take shape around these quiet moments of discovery. Vanessa's working title, The Quiet Machine, spoke to both the physical innovations she observed and the silent mechanisms of change operating within the community. Her footage captured Hannah secretly testing her inventions in the pre-dawn hours, Eli's weathered hands sketching complex mechanical designs, and Musk's growing appreciation for the elegant simplicity of Amish engineering solutions. As the days progressed, Vanessa noticed a shift in the community's response to her presence. Initial wariness gave way to a kind of comfortable ignorance of her camera. This allowed her to capture authentic interactions that revealed the community's complex relationship with progress. Young children would gather around Hannah as she worked, their eyes wide with wonder at her mechanical creations. Older community members would pause to watch Eli and Musk deep in conversation, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. The most compelling footage came from unexpected moments. A group of young men discussing their woodworking techniques with Musk. their traditional methods meeting his modern understanding of material science, or Hannah explaining her innovative irrigation system to skeptical farmers, her voice steady despite their doubtful expressions. These interactions painted a picture of a community not simply resistant to change, but thoughtfully engaging with it on their own terms. Vanessa's role as a silent observer allowed her to notice patterns others might miss. She saw how Eli strategically introduced new ideas through familiar contexts, how Hannah's innovations always served community needs rather than individual desires, and how even Caleb's opposition seemed to stem from a deep commitment to preserving what he saw as essential values, rather than mere resistance to change. The documentary was becoming more than a record of Musk's visit or an examination of Amish life. It was evolving into a meditation on the nature of progress itself. What did it mean to advance while maintaining connection to fundamental values? How could innovation serve community rather than fracture it? These questions emerged naturally from the footage, asking viewers to examine their own relationship with technology and tradition. As Vanessa reviewed her footage each evening, she realized she was documenting something unprecedented, a moment of potential transformation in a community that had deliberately remained unchanged for generations. But would this transformation strengthen or weaken the fabric of Amish life? And how would her documentary influence the very changes it documented? As the autumn sun cast long shadows across the Lancaster County farmland, Hannah Zook found herself in an unprecedented position, mediating a dialogue between two worlds she had grown to understand deeply. Who better to bridge the gap between Silicon Valley's innovator and the Amish elders than someone who lived with a foot in both realms? The meeting had been Hannah's suggestion, born from countless conversations with her grandfather Eli about finding common ground between progress and tradition. Elon Musk sat at one end of the long wooden table in the community meeting house, his usual confident demeanor somewhat subdued in the presence of the Amish elders. Caleb Miller and 3 other church leaders occupied the opposite end, their stern expressions masking what Hannah knew to be genuine curiosity. Vanessa Cho's camera whirred quietly in the corner, documenting this historic intersection of cultures. How often did tech billionaires and Amish elders break bread together? The filmmaker had learned to make herself nearly invisible, capturing authentic moments without disrupting their natural flow. Hannah began by sharing her own journey of reconciling innovation with tradition. She spoke of the late-night conversations with her grandfather Eli, who had once secretly studied engineering himself. She described her hidden workshop, where she developed simple machines to help with daily tasks, not to replace human work, but to enhance it. The elders listened intently, their expressions softening as they recognized the careful balance she struck. Elon found himself nodding as Hannah explained how her inventions always served the community rather than individual gain. This resonated with his own evolving understanding of technology's role in society. What if innovation could be guided by the Amish principles of community benefit and intentional adoption? Caleb Miller, who had initially been Hannah's strongest critic, raised thoughtful questions about maintaining their way of life while selectively embracing helpful innovations. His concerns reflected a deeper wisdom that even Elon had to acknowledge, the importance of asking not just whether something could be done, but whether it should be done. The discussion turned to unexpected common ground between Amish craftsmanship and modern engineering principles. Both valued efficiency, sustainability, and purposeful design. Both sought to solve real problems rather than create artificial needs. Hannah guided the conversation with gentle questions, drawing out insights from both sides. Eli Zook contributed his unique perspective as someone who had walked both paths. His experience studying engineering in his youth, though kept secret, for decades had informed his understanding of how knowledge could serve faith rather than challenge it. His words carried special weight with both the elders and Elon, who had come to respect the old man's subtle wisdom. As the afternoon progressed, the rigid formality of the meeting dissolved into genuine exchange. Vanessa's camera captured the moment. Caleb Miller actually smiled at one of Elon's observations about solar power's similarity to the Amish use of natural energy sources. Who would have predicted such a moment of connection? The true breakthrough came when Hannah demonstrated one of her inventions, a simple but ingenious modification to the traditional water pump that reduced physical strain while maintaining the community's prohibition on electrical power. It embodied everything they had discussed: innovation in service of community, respect for tradition, and practical problem-solving. Elon found himself questioning his own assumptions about progress. Could the Amish approach to technological adoption offer insights for the broader world? What might be gained by moving more slowly, more thoughtfully, with greater consideration for community impact? The elders, too, seemed to be wrestling with new perspectives. They saw in Hannah not a threat to their way of life, but a bridge to a future that could preserve their values while adapting to changing times. Her ability to navigate both worlds with grace and wisdom offered a model for the community's evolution. As the meeting drew to a close, Hannah felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had helped create a space where two seemingly opposite worldviews could find common ground. But more importantly, she had demonstrated that innovation and tradition need not be enemies. They could be partners in building a better future. What would grow from these seeds of understanding? How might this unlikely dialogue influence both the Amish community and the tech world's approach to innovation? As the participants departed, these questions hung in the air, promising that this conversation was just the beginning of a longer journey toward mutual understanding. As dusk settled over Lancaster County, Elon Musk found himself drawn to the profound stillness that descended upon the Amish community. The absence of artificial light and electronic buzz created a darkness he had never truly experienced in his technology-driven world. How had he never noticed the overwhelming presence of modern noise until its complete absence? Vanessa Cho's camera captured the subtle transformation of day into night, her lens focusing on the methodical lighting of kerosene lamps in distant farmhouse windows. The soft amber glow created an almost ethereal atmosphere, so different from the harsh LED lights Elon was accustomed to in his factories and offices. From his position on the Zook family's porch, Elon watched as Hannah moved through her evening routine with practiced grace. She tended to the animals with the same careful attention she gave to her secret inventions, proving that innovation and tradition weren't as disconnected as many believed. The young woman's quiet efficiency reminded him of his own late-night work sessions, though her purpose served immediate, tangible needs rather than future possibilities. Eli Zook joined Elon on the porch, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The elder's presence had become a source of unexpected comfort during Elon's stay. "Does thee find our evenings too quiet?" Eli asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if reluctant to disturb the peace. The question struck Elon as ironic, considering his constant pursuit of the next breakthrough, the next innovation. When was the last time he had simply sat still? The community's evening ritual forced a slowdown that both frustrated and fascinated him. In the distance, Caleb Miller's silhouette moved between buildings, performing his duties as night watchman, a practice that had remained unchanged for generations. Vanessa's camera whirred softly as she documented the interaction between the two men, careful to maintain her role as an observer rather than a participant. Her presence had become almost unnoticed by the community, though Elon occasionally caught glimpses of Caleb watching her work with a mixture of curiosity and concern. The night air carried the sound of singing from a nearby home, hymns in German, their ancient melodies floating across the darkened fields. Elon noticed Hannah pause in her work, her head tilted toward the music. Despite her innovative spirit, she remained deeply connected to these traditional elements of her culture. What lessons lay in this ability to hold both the old and the new in such careful balance? As the evening progressed, Eli shared stories of night watches from his youth, tales that revealed the community's deep understanding of sustainable living, long before it became a modern environmental concern. The old man's words carried wisdom that transcended the technological divide between their worlds. How many solutions to contemporary problems lay hidden in these simple practices? The conversation shifted to the stars, now brilliantly visible, without light pollution. Eli's knowledge of celestial navigation demonstrated a practical understanding of astronomy that rivaled modern GPS systems. This revelation led Elon to contemplate the different paths to knowledge. Did progress always require complexity? In the barn, Hannah worked by lamplight, the shadows dancing across her latest project. Through the open door, Elon could see her determined focus, reminiscent of his own engineers. The parallel struck him, innovation driven not by the tools available, but by the questions that needed answering. Caleb's rounds brought him past the Zook farm, his lantern creating a moving point of light in the darkness. The night watchman's role served as more than security. It represented community care and connection. Even in his opposition to change, Caleb maintained these essential bonds of trust and responsibility. The evening's peace was occasionally broken by the clip-clop of horse hooves as late travelers returned home. Each sound carried meaning in this environment, telling stories of work completed, visits concluded, and families reunited. The efficiency of this communication network, operating without technology, challenged Elon's assumptions about progress. Vanessa's documentary captured these moments with artistic sensitivity, her camera finding poetry in the interplay of shadow and lamplight. The story she was telling through her lens revealed complexities that transcended the simple narrative of tradition versus progress. How would her audience respond to this glimpse into a world that functioned so differently from their own? As night fully embraced the community, Elon found himself contemplating the paradox before him. In seeking to bring revolutionary change to the world, had he overlooked the revolutionary wisdom preserved in these seemingly unchanging traditions? The question lingered in the darkness, as persistent as the gentle glow of kerosene lamps in distant windows. As dawn broke over the Lancaster countryside, Eli Zook's schoolhouse filled with an unusual energy. The traditional one-room building, typically reserved for basic education, was about to become the setting for an unprecedented experiment in combining Amish wisdom with modern innovation. Elon Musk stood at the front of the room beside Eli, both men sharing quiet observations as young Amish students filed in, their curious eyes darting between their familiar teacher and the unusual visitor. Vanessa Cho had positioned herself discreetly in a corner, her camera capturing the unique moment when two worlds converged in this humble classroom. "Remember what we discussed," Eli murmured to Elon, his weathered hand smoothing his gray beard. "These children understand principles through practical application. Theory means little without purpose." The tech mogul nodded, uncharacteristically subdued as he observed the students settling onto wooden benches. Hannah Zook slipped in last, taking a seat near the back, her presence drawing Caleb Miller's attention from his position by the doorway. The community leader had insisted on observing this unconventional lesson, his stern expression masking deeper concerns about outside influences on their youth. Eli began the lesson with a familiar prayer before presenting the day's challenge: designing a more efficient water collection system for the community's gardens. The problem immediately engaged the students, who had all experienced the practical difficulties of current methods during dry seasons. "In your world," Eli addressed Elon, seamlessly incorporating him into the discussion, "how would you approach this challenge?" The question opened a fascinating dialogue between ancient wisdom and modern innovation, with students offering solutions that bridged both worlds. What emerged was a remarkable synthesis of ideas. While Elon spoke of pump systems and modern irrigation, the students adapted these concepts to their simpler means, suggesting gravity-fed solutions and natural pressure systems that required no electricity. Hannah's contributions particularly stood out, as she proposed a series of interconnected collection points that mimicked patterns she'd observed in nature. The dynamic between Eli and Elon evolved throughout the lesson, each man learning from the other's perspective. Elon found himself repeatedly surprised by the elegant simplicity of solutions proposed by students who had never seen a computer, while Eli skillfully guided the class to consider how modern concepts could be adapted to their way of life. Caleb Miller's presence served as a constant reminder of the delicate balance being struck. His expression shifted subtly as he witnessed the students' enthusiasm and the practical nature of their solutions. Could innovation coexist with tradition without threatening their way of life? Vanessa's camera caught the moment when one young, Students' face lit up with understanding, connecting Elon's explanation of fluid dynamics with his father's method of directing water through their farm's channels. These small breakthroughs illustrated the potential of bridging different worlds of knowledge. As the lesson progressed, the initial awkwardness dissolved into genuine engagement. Students who had never considered certain principles of engineering began to see their daily work through new eyes. How might simple machines and natural forces be better utilized within the boundaries of their beliefs? The most powerful moments came when students began teaching each other, with Eli and Elon stepping back to observe. Hannah's natural leadership emerged as she helped younger students understand complex concepts through practical examples from their daily lives. Her grandfather's proud smile did not go unnoticed by Vanessa's careful documentation. The lesson extended beyond its scheduled time, with students reluctant to leave as they continued discussing possibilities. Even as they filed out, animated, conversations about water flow and collection methods filled the air. Caleb Miller lingered, his usual rigid stance softening slightly as he watched the excited students depart. Eli and Elon shared a moment of quiet understanding as they gathered their materials. The success of their collaboration raised intriguing questions about the nature of progress and tradition. Could this model of education offer something valuable to both worlds? What other bridges might be built between these seemingly opposite approaches to life? Vanessa's footage would later reveal subtle details missed in the moment. The way Caleb's hand had unclenched during particularly engaging discussions, Hannah's confident posture as she explained her ideas, and the gradual transformation of Elon's expression from polite interest to genuine amazement at the students' insights. The morning's lesson had demonstrated something powerful about the nature of learning and innovation. In this simple schoolhouse, two different approaches to understanding the world had created something greater than either could achieve alone. But as the dust settled on the morning's activities, new questions emerged about the implications of this collaboration for both the Amish community and the wider world beyond. As morning dew settled on the grass outside the one-room schoolhouse, Hannah Zook's mind wandered to the peculiar fusion of worlds unfolding before her. Her grandfather Eli and the enigmatic Elon Musk stood at opposite ends of the classroom, their unlikely partnership creating an atmosphere electric with possibility. Who could have imagined the world's most famous innovator would find common ground with an Amish elder in their humble community? The day's challenge centered on developing wind-powered solutions for farming challenges. Eli's weathered hand sketched simple diagrams on the blackboard, while Elon added modern engineering principles, creating an unusual blend of old wisdom and new technology. The students, initially hesitant, began offering ideas that bridged both worlds. Hannah noticed Vanessa Cho's camera discreetly capturing the scene from the corner. The filmmaker had become nearly invisible to the community, her presence a silent witness to their evolving story. Through her lens, Hannah wondered how the outside world would interpret this unprecedented collaboration between Silicon Valley and simple living. The real tension, however, emanated from Caleb Miller, who observed from the doorway with thinly veiled concern. His presence reminded everyone of the delicate balance they were attempting to maintain. Would their innovations push too far beyond the boundaries of their faith? How could they honor tradition while embracing necessary change? Elon's approach surprised many in the room. Rather than dominating the discussion with complex technological solutions, he listened intently to the students' ideas, particularly their deep understanding of wind patterns and natural energy flows. His respect for their practical knowledge seemed to grow with each passing moment, challenging his own preconceptions about simple living. The class divided into small groups, each tackling different aspects of wind-powered technology. Hannah's team focused on a revolutionary threshing mechanism that would harness the consistent afternoon breezes common to their valley. Their design incorporated wooden gears and canvas sails, materials acceptable within their community's guidelines, yet capable of significant mechanical advantage. Eli moved between the groups, his eyes twinkling with barely contained excitement. For decades, he had carefully contained his passion for engineering, sharing it only in measured doses appropriate to their way of life. Now, watching his students freely explore the intersection of traditional wisdom and innovative thinking, he saw his long-held dreams taking shape. Vanessa's camera caught a particularly poignant moment when Elon paused at Hannah's workstation. The two innovators, separated by culture but united in curiosity, discussed the potential refinements to her wind-powered design. Their exchange exemplified the project's core purpose, finding sustainable solutions that respected both progress and tradition. The morning's energy shifted when Caleb stepped fully into the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. Yet something had changed in his demeanor. As he examined the students' drawings and models, his usual stern expression softened slightly. Could he see how these innovations might strengthen rather than threaten their community? Elon and Eli exchanged glances as Caleb picked up one of the wooden prototypes. The simple device demonstrated how wind power could reduce the physical burden of certain farming tasks while staying within the boundaries of Amish principles. Would this be the bridge between preservation and progress they had been seeking? As the lesson progressed, the students' enthusiasm grew more apparent. Their questions became bolder, their solutions more creative. They began to see how understanding the natural world could enhance their traditional practices without compromising their values. But more importantly, they were learning to think critically about the intersection of faith and innovation. Hannah's design caught particular attention, incorporating elements of traditional windmills with novel mechanical improvements. Her solution demonstrated an elegant balance between efficiency and simplicity, proving that progress didn't necessarily require complexity. How many other innovations lay dormant in their community, waiting for the right moment to emerge? The morning's lesson extended beyond mere technical education. It became a living example of how different worlds could inform and enhance each other. As Vanessa's camera continued its silent documentation, the story unfolding before her lens spoke to universal themes of adaptation, respect, and the endless human drive to improve while honoring what came before. What none of them fully realized, yet, was how this simple morning lesson would ripple out beyond their schoolhouse walls, challenging assumptions on both sides of the cultural divide. Could this unlikely collaboration between an Amish community and a tech billionaire offer insights for a world struggling to balance progress with preservation? The autumn wind carried more than just fallen leaves through Lancaster County that morning. It brought whispers of change that made Caleb Miller increasingly uneasy. After witnessing the students' successful wind-powered farming demonstration, he could no longer remain silent about the direction of Eli Zook's teaching methods. The community needed to address this before winter arrived. Vanessa Cho positioned her camera discreetly as community members filed into the schoolhouse for what would become one of the most significant meetings in recent memory. Through her lens, she captured the subtle tensions, the way the wooden benches creaked under the weight of concerned parents, the nervous glances between students, and how Hannah Zook's fingers twisted the edge of her apron. Caleb Miller stood before the gathered assembly, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the wooden floorboards. "We must consider what these new methods mean for our way of life," he began, his voice carrying the weight of generations of tradition. "Are we not straying from the path of simplicity that has guided us for centuries?" Elon Musk, seated near the back of the room, watched with growing interest as the debate unfolded. He had witnessed similar resistance to innovation throughout his career, but never in a context where the very fabric of a community's identity hung in the balance. What would happen when an immovable force of tradition met the unstoppable current of progress? Eli Zook rose slowly from his seat, his 87 years evident in his deliberate movements but not in the clarity of his voice. "Our ways are not about rejecting knowledge but about using it wisely," he countered. "These children are learning to harness God's natural forces, just as our ancestors did with water wheels and draft horses." The exchange between Caleb and Eli revealed deeper questions that had long simmered beneath the surface of their community. What defined progress? Where was the line between innovation and excess? How could they preserve their values while preparing their children for an ever-changing world? Hannah's voice, unexpected and clear, cut through the mounting tension. "The wind turbine we built helps us work together, just like our traditional barn raisings," she explained, standing despite the disapproving glances from some elders. "We're not replacing our values, we're applying them in new ways." Vanessa's camera caught the subtle shift in Caleb's expression, a flicker of understanding, perhaps even respect, though his concerns remained evident. The community members exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement with Hannah, others maintaining stoic expressions of uncertainty. Elon observed the delicate dance of ideas unfolding before him. In this simple schoolhouse, he witnessed a microcosm of the larger challenges facing humanity: the balance between preservation and adaptation, tradition and innovation. Could there be a middle ground where both could coexist? The debate continued as community members voiced their thoughts. Some spoke of their fears about losing their children to the outside world, while others shared stories of how traditional values had always evolved while remaining true to their core principles. Through it all, Vanessa's camera captured the raw humanity of a community grappling with change. As the meeting progressed, an unexpected voice rose from the back of the room. Sarah Yoder, known for her quiet dedication to tradition, spoke of her grandson's newfound enthusiasm for learning since Eli introduced his new teaching methods. "I see him reading his Bible with the same excitement he shows for understanding how the wind moves," she said, her words carrying weight in their simplicity. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Caleb Miller, who had begun the meeting standing, rigid with conviction, now appeared more contemplative. The challenge he had brought forth had evolved into something more nuanced, not a battle between old and new, but a search for harmony between preservation and growth. As the autumn sun began to set, casting long shadows through the schoolhouse windows, the community hadn't reached a definitive conclusion. Instead, they had begun a more important process, learning to discuss change while holding fast to their core values. The real challenge, they were discovering, wasn't in choosing between tradition and progress, but in finding ways to honor both. What would this mean for the future of their community? How would they navigate the delicate balance between preserving their way of life and embracing beneficial innovations? The answers remained uncertain, but the conversation had begun, and with it the possibility of finding a path forward that respected both the wisdom of the past and the potential of the future. As dawn broke over Lancaster County, Hannah Zook stood at the crossroads of her family's farm, her mind as divided as the paths before her. The previous day's heated debate between Caleb Miller and her grandfather Eli had left the community in a state of unrest, forcing everyone, but especially Hannah, to examine where tradition ended and progress began. Elon Musk observed Hannah from the farmhouse porch, recognizing in her stance the same internal struggle he'd faced in his youth. Should innovation bow to tradition? When does progress become a threat to identity? These questions had haunted him throughout his visit to the Amish community, but now they carried a weight that transcended his personal journey. Vanessa Cho's camera captured Hannah's solitary figure from a distance, the morning mist creating an almost ethereal quality around the young woman. Through her lens, Vanessa saw more than just a girl in traditional Amish dress. She witnessed the embodiment of a universal human conflict between roots and wings. Inside the farmhouse, Eli Zook's weathered hands traced the edges of old engineering textbooks he'd hidden decades ago. His own choice, made so many years before, had led him to blend his passion for learning with his dedication to the Amish way of life. But could Hannah find the same balance? The world beyond their community had changed dramatically since his youth. Caleb Miller, walking the perimeter of his fields, struggled with his own demons. His steadfast defense of tradition stemmed not from blind adherence, but from genuine concern for the community's future. Yet Hannah's innovations, particularly her water purification system, had already saved several families from waterborne illness this season. How could something so beneficial be wrong? The tension within the community had reached a critical point. Hannah's recent experiments, combined with Elon's presence and Vanessa's documentation, had created a perfect storm of controversy. Some younger community members had begun questioning long-held beliefs, while others clung more tightly to tradition. Elon found himself in an unexpected position. Initially arriving to study Amish efficiency, he now faced questions about his own role in disrupting their way of life. His conversations with Hannah had revealed a brilliant mind that reminded him of his younger self, but was he right to encourage her talents when doing so might separate her from her community? Vanessa's footage captured subtle moments that spoke volumes. Hannah teaching younger children about simple machines, Eli's proud smile as she explained her latest innovation, Caleb's conflicted expression when witnessing the practical benefits of her work. These scenes would later become pivotal in The Quiet Machine, showing the human face of progress versus tradition. The community's women, often quiet in public discussions, played a crucial role in Hannah's decision. They understood the delicate balance between preservation and adaptation, having maintained their traditions while secretly incorporating small improvements into their daily lives for generations. As morning turned to afternoon, Hannah sought out her grandfather. Eli found her in his workshop holding one of his old technical drawings. The parallel between their situations wasn't lost on either of them, both blessed or cursed with minds that saw possibilities beyond their current reality. Elon, watching their interaction through the workshop window, recognized the weight of the moment. His own presence had catalyzed this crisis, bringing simmering tensions to the surface. But perhaps that had been necessary, like the pressure that transforms coal into diamonds. Caleb, passing by on his way to the fields, paused briefly to observe the scene. His expression softened momentarily, remembering his own youth and the questions he'd once harbored. The community's strength had always been its ability to bend without breaking. But where was that line? Vanessa's camera continued rolling, capturing these quiet moments of contemplation. Her documentary was evolving beyond its original scope, becoming a testament to the universal human struggle between honoring the past and embracing the future. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the Lancaster County fields. Hannah's decision would affect more than just her own future. It would set a precedent for how this community faced the inevitable march of progress. Could there be a middle path, one that preserved the essential while allowing for growth? As autumn leaves painted Lancaster County in brilliant hues, Eli Zook sat in his workshop, his weathered hands tracing the grain of a half-finished rocking chair. The morning light filtered through dusty windows, illuminating decades of woodworking, tools, and, hidden beneath a canvas tarp, Hannah's latest invention. Vanessa Cho's camera captured the quiet moment, her presence now familiar enough to go almost unnoticed. Elon Musk arrived without his usual entourage, having learned that simplicity often yielded the most profound conversations. "You've been unusually quiet since Hannah showed her wind turbine design to the community," he observed, settling onto a worn workbench. Eli continued his methodical sanding, the rhythmic motion matching his measured words. "In my 87 years, I've learned that wisdom often comes from holding two opposing truths in balance. Like this wood, too much pressure splits it, too little leaves it rough." He paused, examining his work. The same applies to our way of life. The conversation drew Vanessa closer, her camera capturing the interplay between the tech mogul and the Amish elder. Elon leaned forward, intrigued by the parallel. "How do you reconcile your past as an engineering student with your commitment to the Amish way?" "Think of a tree," Eli responded, gesturing toward the window where a massive oak stood sentinel. Its roots run deep, anchoring it firmly in tradition, while its branches reach toward the sky, seeking light and growth. Without strong roots, the tree topples. Without growing branches, it dies. Vanessa's lens caught the subtle shift in Elon's expression, recognition dawning as he processed Eli's metaphor. The billionaire entrepreneur, known for pushing boundaries, found himself reconsidering his own assumptions about progress. "When I was young, like Hannah, I thought change meant abandoning the old ways," Eli continued. "My secret studies in engineering seemed like rebellion. But time taught me that understanding the new doesn't require rejecting the old. It's about finding the harmony between them." A knock at the workshop door interrupted their discussion. Caleb Miller entered, his presence causing a momentary tension. But instead of his usual stern demeanor, he carried a thoughtful expression. "The community has been discussing Hannah's proposal," he said, taking a seat on a nearby stool. Eli's hand stilled on his work. "And what wisdom has the community found, Caleb?" "We're divided," Caleb admitted. "Some fear we're losing our way. Others see potential in combining our traditions with new ideas." He glanced at the tarp-covered invention. "Perhaps both perspectives have merit." Elon watched this exchange with keen interest, noting how Caleb's position had evolved from outright opposition to cautious consideration. "How do you determine where to draw the line?" he asked both men. Eli set aside his sandpaper, his blue eyes bright with accumulated wisdom. "We ask 3 questions. Does it serve the community? Does it preserve our values? Does it bring us closer to or further from our purpose?" "But those answers aren't always clear," Caleb added, surprising everyone with his candor. "No," Eli agreed, "they're not. That's why we need both the wisdom of experience and the fresh eyes of youth. Hannah sees possibilities we've overlooked, just as our traditions offer insights she's yet to fully understand." Vanessa's camera panned between the 3 men, capturing this unexpected moment of convergence between different worldviews. Her documentary was revealing something deeper than a simple clash between old and new. "You know," Elon mused, "in tech, we often talk about disruption as if it's always positive. But you've shown me there's wisdom in thoughtful evolution rather than constant revolution." Eli nodded, picking up his tools again. "The greatest innovations often come from understanding what should change and what should remain. Like this rocking chair, the design is centuries old, but each craftsman adds their own subtle improvements while maintaining its essential purpose." The workshop fell quiet save for the gentle scrape of sandpaper on wood. In this moment of shared contemplation, the gap between Silicon Valley and Lancaster County seemed to narrow, bridged by an understanding that progress and tradition need not be enemies. But as the morning light strengthened, questions lingered. How would Hannah navigate this delicate balance? Could the community find its way forward without losing its soul? And what lessons would Elon take back to his world of rapid technological advancement? The ripples of change moved through the Amish community like a gentle breeze through a wheat field, subtle yet unmistakable. What began with Eli Zook's controversial teaching methods and Hannah's hidden innovations had evolved into something more profound, a delicate balance between preservation and progress. Vanessa Cho's camera captured the first signs during a community barn raising. Traditional methods intertwined seamlessly with Hannah's suggested improvements to the pulley systems, drawing curious glances rather than the previous looks of disapproval. The young woman's innovations, once whispered about in concerned tones, now sparked thoughtful discussions among the community members. Elon Musk observed these changes with growing fascination, noting how the Amish approach to technological adoption differed fundamentally from the rest of the world's rush toward progress. Rather than asking, "Can we?" they asked, "Should we?" Each proposed change underwent careful consideration through the lens of community impact and spiritual values. Caleb Miller's transformation proved particularly noteworthy. While still maintaining his role as guardian of tradition, his rigid stance had softened. During a community council meeting, he surprised everyone by supporting a modified version of Hannah's water filtration system for the community well. "We must be wise stewards of what God has given us," he stated, echoing Eli's earlier teachings but adding his own perspective. "Innovation itself is not the enemy. It is how we use it that matters." Eli Zook's influence became increasingly apparent as more young community members began approaching him with questions about implementing thoughtful changes. His decades of secretly studying engineering while maintaining his faith had prepared him for this moment. He guided these discussions with the wisdom of experience, helping the community navigate the delicate balance between progress and preservation. Hannah found herself at the center of this quiet revolution, though not in the way she had initially imagined. Rather than fighting against tradition, she learned to work within it, applying her innovative mind to solutions that enhanced rather than replaced community practices. Her grandfather's patient mentorship had taught her that true progress didn't require abandoning one's roots. Vanessa's documentary footage revealed subtle but significant shifts in daily life, Solar-powered LED lanterns designed with plain black casings to maintain simplicity began appearing in barns. Hand-powered washing machines incorporated more efficient mechanisms while still requiring physical effort. These changes preserved the community's values of hard work and simplicity while reducing unnecessary hardship. Elon's perspective underwent its own transformation. The man who had arrived expecting to teach found himself learning invaluable lessons about sustainable progress. In one particularly poignant moment captured by Vanessa's camera, he discussed with Eli how the Amish approach to technology adoption might inform future innovations in his own companies. The community's young people, inspired by Hannah's example, began approaching both innovation and tradition with newfound respect. They sought ways to honor their heritage while addressing genuine needs, creating solutions that worked within the framework of their beliefs rather than challenging them directly. Even those who initially resisted change found themselves participating in this careful evolution. The women's quilting circle, traditionally a bastion of conservative values, began incorporating Hannah's ideas for more efficient stitching techniques. These changes preserved the social and spiritual aspects of their gathering while reducing physical strain. The transformation extended beyond mere technological adaptations. A deeper understanding emerged about the difference between meaningful progress and change for its own sake. The community began developing a framework for evaluating innovations based on their impact on family bonds, work ethic, and spiritual life. This shift in perspective attracted attention from other Amish communities. Visitors arrived to observe how this settlement balanced tradition with careful progress. Eli and Hannah found themselves sharing their experiences with others who faced similar challenges in their own communities. But perhaps the most significant change occurred in the relationship between the generations. The rigid divide between traditional and progressive viewpoints began to blur, replaced by thoughtful dialogue about the future of their way of life. Young and old alike contributed to discussions about preserving their values while adapting to a changing world. As Vanessa's documentary neared completion, she captured a moment that embodied this transformation. During a sunset gathering, 3 generations sat together on Eli's porch. Eli sharing wisdom from the past, Hannah discussing present innovations, and young children asking questions about the future. The scene represented not just a community in transition, but a model for how tradition and progress might coexist. When Vanessa Cho first arrived in Lancaster County with her camera equipment and Elon Musk's ambitious directive to document his unusual sabbatical, she never imagined her footage would spark a global conversation about the intersection of progress and tradition. Yet as she reviewed hundreds of hours of intimate moments captured over the past months, a story far more nuanced than the expected culture clash emerged through her lens. The documentary opened with a striking juxtaposition: Elon Musk's private jet touching down near horse-drawn buggies. But it was the quiet moments that followed which captivated viewers. Hannah Zook's face illuminated by candlelight as she sketched designs in her notebook, Eli's weathered hands demonstrating simple machines to wide-eyed children, the gradual softening in Caleb Miller's stern countenance as he witnessed positive changes in his community. Vanessa's artistic choice to minimize narration and let the natural sounds and conversations carry the story proved masterful. The footage revealed how Elon's initial skepticism transformed into genuine curiosity and respect. Viewers watched as the tech mogul sat in Eli's workshop, asking questions about wind power and sustainable farming with the humility of a student. The elderly Amish man's eyes sparkled as he shared knowledge accumulated over 8 decades of observing nature's engineering. The heart of the film centered on Hannah's journey. Through Vanessa's careful editing, audiences witnessed a young woman who didn't need to choose between her heritage and her innovative spirit. The camera caught stolen moments of Hannah testing her inventions in the barn, her grandfather's proud smile as she solved mechanical problems, and the subtle ways she began inspiring other young people in the community to think creatively while honoring their traditions. Perhaps most compelling was the evolution of Caleb Miller's perspective. Early footage showed his rigid opposition to change, but as the documentary progressed, viewers noticed small shifts: a thoughtful nod during community discussions, a reluctant smile at successful, sustainable farming innovations. and eventually, his crucial role in helping the community find balance between progress and preservation. Social media exploded with reactions as The Quiet Machine went viral. Viewers worldwide found themselves questioning their own relationship with technology and progress. Comments poured in about the beauty of finding middle ground between innovation and tradition. Many were moved by the way the Amish community demonstrated how to carefully evaluate and selectively adopt changes while maintaining their core values. The film's impact extended beyond entertainment. Universities began incorporating it into their engineering ethics courses. Sustainable technology companies reached out to learn from the Amish approach to selective innovation. Environmental groups praised the documentary's portrayal of simple, yet effective solutions to modern challenges. For Vanessa, the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. During a private screening in Eli's barn, she watched the community's reactions through her camera one final time. The usual silence of their gatherings was punctuated by gentle murmurs of recognition and occasional laughter. Even Caleb Miller, sitting in the back, nodded with quiet approval at the faithful representation of their journey. As the documentary gained recognition, Elon faced constant questions about what he learned from his time with the Amish. His answers surprised many. It wasn't about rejecting or embracing technology wholesale, but about thoughtful implementation that preserved human connection and community values. The lessons from Lancaster County began influencing his approach to technological development, leading to more conscious innovation practices at his companies. The film's success posed new challenges for the community. How would they handle the increased attention while maintaining their way of life? What boundaries needed to be set as more outsiders sought to learn from their example? These questions would test the delicate balance they had achieved between openness and preservation. Through it all, Vanessa's camera continued rolling, capturing a community navigating change on their own terms. The quiet revolution she documented offered hope for a world struggling to find equilibrium between progress and tradition. What began as a simple assignment had evolved into a powerful testament to the possibility of mindful innovation, proving that sometimes the most profound changes come not from radical disruption, but from careful, conscious evolution. As Vanessa Cho's documentary The Quiet Machine captured global attention, its ripples began transforming lives far beyond Lancaster County's rolling hills. Elon Musk found himself repeatedly returning to the footage, particularly the scenes of Hannah Zook's makeshift workshop and Eli's patient teaching methods. What had begun as a curious exploration into Amish innovation had crystallized into something far more significant, a vision for revolutionizing education. Late one evening, while reviewing Vanessa's raw footage, Elon noticed subtle details he'd missed during his visits. The way Eli Zook incorporated practical physics lessons into barn-raising demonstrations. Hannah's ingenious adaptation of simple machines to solve complex problems. Even Caleb Miller's traditional apprenticeship model held valuable insights about hands-on learning and community involvement. What if we've been approaching education all wrong? Elon mused to Vanessa during a follow-up interview. We've separated thinking from doing, theory from practice. The Amish have maintained this integrated approach for centuries. The concept began taking shape through a series of conversations with Eli Zook, who shared his own journey of secretly studying engineering texts while maintaining his Amish lifestyle. Knowledge without purpose is like a wagon without wheels, Eli explained, his weathered hands sketching designs in the soil. Our young people learn by doing, by failing, by trying again. Hannah's experience became a central case study. Her innovative spirit, nurtured by her grandfather's guidance while respecting community boundaries, demonstrated how traditional wisdom could embrace new ideas without losing its foundation. Even Caleb Miller, initially resistant to change, had begun acknowledging the value of Hannah's practical innovations in their daily work. Vanessa's camera captured a pivotal moment when Elon presented his emerging educational framework to the community. The proposal, a new kind of learning center that would combine Amish principles of practical knowledge with modern technical education. The facility would welcome students from both Amish and English backgrounds, focusing on sustainable technology, and ethical innovation. But how can we preserve our ways while opening such doors? Caleb Miller questioned, voicing the community's concerns. The room fell silent as Eli stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the lamplight. When I was young, Eli began, I thought knowledge was dangerous. Then I realized it's not knowledge that threatens us, but pride. We've always adapted to serve our community better. This is no different. The initiative gained unexpected support from Hannah's practical demonstrations. She had developed a solar-powered water pump that operated within Amish guidelines. No electricity to homes, but significant labor reduction for community benefit. Her innovation exemplified the proposed program's philosophy, advancing technology while preserving cultural values. Elon's team, guided by Vanessa's documentary insights, began developing curriculum that honored both worlds. Traditional craftsmanship would sit alongside sustainable engineering. Students would learn to build both barns and solar arrays, to understand both horse-drawn equipment and electric vehicles. The project faced its share of challenges. Some community members worried about excessive outside influence. Others questioned whether such a program could maintain the delicate balance between progress and preservation. Yet the seeds of change had been planted, taking root in fertile ground prepared by generations of practical wisdom. Vanessa's camera continued rolling as the initiative evolved, capturing the subtle transformations in attitudes and relationships. She documented Caleb Miller's gradual shift from opposition to cautious participation, particularly after seeing how the program could help preserve traditional skills by making them relevant to modern challenges. The most profound change appeared in the younger generation. Hannah's example inspired other Amish youth to explore their innovative potential while remaining grounded in their faith and community. The program began attracting attention from other Amish settlements, each seeking to adapt the model to their own needs. What had started as Elon's curious visit to an Amish farm was blossoming into something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds that honored both tradition and innovation. As Eli often reminded them, quoting an old Amish saying, "New branches grow best from strong roots," but would this educational experiment succeed in its ambitious goals? Could it truly preserve Amish values while fostering technological innovation? And how would it change both communities, Amish and English, as they learned from each other? The answers would unfold in unexpected ways, challenging assumptions on both sides of the cultural divide. The autumn wind rustled through the cornfields as the Amish community gathered in the main barn, an unusual occurrence on a Thursday afternoon. Word had spread quickly after Eli Zook announced a special meeting, called by their unexpected visitor Elon Musk. The wooden benches creaked under the weight of curious attendees, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and wariness. Vanessa Cho positioned herself discreetly in a corner, her camera capturing the historic moment. Through her lens, she observed the subtle dynamics playing out. Eli Zook's calm demeanor as he sat beside his granddaughter Hannah, Caleb Miller's tense posture near the front, and Elon's uncharacteristically nervous energy as he waited to address the group. When Elon finally stood before the community, he seemed different from the confident tech mogul the world knew. His usual bravado had been tempered by weeks of living among the Amish, replaced by something more genuine. He began by acknowledging the wisdom he'd gained from their way of life, particularly from his conversations with Eli. "What I've learned here challenges everything I thought I knew about progress," Elon explained, his voice carrying across the hushed barn. "We've been so focused on moving forward that we've forgotten to look around us. Your community has preserved something precious, the ability to choose which technologies serve your values, rather than letting technology choose your values for you." Hannah leaned forward slightly, her eyes bright with interest as Elon outlined his proposal, a unique educational initiative that would bridge two worlds. The program would allow young people from both Amish and English communities to learn from each other. Amish wisdom about sustainable living and mindful technology adoption would be shared with the outside world, while Amish youth would have the opportunity to understand modern innovations within the context of their values. Caleb Miller's expression remained stern, but there was a subtle shift in his posture as Elon explained how the program would respect ordnung and community decisions. The initiative wouldn't push for change, but rather create space for understanding. Each community would maintain its autonomy in deciding how to participate. Eli's weathered face showed pride as Elon described how Hannah's inventions had inspired part of the program. Her mechanical innovations, created with simple materials and respect for Amish principles, demonstrated how creativity could flourish within boundaries. The program would encourage similar thoughtful innovation. Vanessa's camera caught the moment when several young faces lit up at the mention of hands-on learning opportunities. Even some of the more conservative elders nodded appreciatively when Elon emphasized how the program would help preserve Amish craftsmanship and farming techniques by sharing them with the wider world. The proposal included the establishment of a trust, managed by a board that would include Amish representatives to fund scholarships and resources for participating communities. Elon stressed that this wasn't charity but an exchange of valuable knowledge. The outside world needed the Amish perspective on technology more than ever. As Elon concluded, the barn remained silent for several long moments. The community's response would determine whether this bold experiment in cultural bridge building would become reality. Would they see it as a threat to their way of life or an opportunity to strengthen their values while sharing them with others? The answer would shape not just their future, but potentially offer a new model for how traditional and modern societies could learn from each other. Eli stood slowly, his presence commanding attention. His next words would carry significant weight with the community. But before he could speak, Hannah raised her hand, surprising everyone. In this crucial moment, would the voice of the younger generation help chart a new course? And how would Caleb Miller, the guardian of tradition, respond to this unprecedented proposal? The autumn wind continued its whispered conversation with the cornfields outside, while inside the barn the future hung in the balance. Vanessa's camera rolled silently, documenting what could be the beginning of a remarkable partnership between two very different worlds, or the end of an ambitious dream to bridge an age-old divide. As autumn leaves drifted across Lancaster County, Caleb Miller stood at his workshop window, watching Eli Zook demonstrate her latest invention to a group of wide-eyed children. The sight would have troubled him deeply just months ago, but something had shifted within him, like the changing seasons that painted the countryside in rich amber hues. The arrival of Elon Musk had initially represented everything Caleb feared, the encroachment of the modern world threatening their carefully preserved way of life. Yet as he observed the subtle transformations within his community, he began to recognize an unexpected harmony between tradition and innovation. Hannah's inventions, while novel, drew upon the same principles of simplicity and purposefulness that guided their Amish beliefs. Vanessa Cho's camera captured the moment from a respectful distance as Caleb emerged from his workshop. Her documentary had become an unexpected bridge between worlds, showing how the Amish community's approach to technology could offer valuable lessons to the outside world. Through her lens, the story had evolved beyond a simple clash of cultures into something more nuanced and profound. Eli Zook, seated on a nearby bench, caught Caleb's eye and offered a knowing nod. Their relationship, once strained by disagreements over teaching methods and community direction, had developed into one of mutual understanding. Eli's secret past as an engineering student no longer seemed like a betrayal of their ways, but rather a testament to the community's ability to adapt while maintaining its core values. The presence of Elon Musk had catalyzed these changes, though not in the way anyone had expected. His initial skepticism of the Amish lifestyle had transformed into genuine respect and curiosity. Through his interactions with Eli, he had discovered that innovation could flourish within constraints, and that progress didn't always require cutting-edge technology. Hannah's latest invention, a water purification system that operated without electricity, embodied this philosophy perfectly. It merged Amish craftsmanship with modern understanding, addressing contemporary challenges while respecting traditional methods. The children gathered around her displayed the same curiosity that had once worried Caleb, but now he saw it differently. Wasn't curiosity itself a gift from God? As community leader, Caleb had always carried the weight of preserving their way of life. The burden had sometimes made him rigid, resistant to any change that might threaten their traditions. But watching Hannah teach the younger generation? He recognized that preservation didn't mean stagnation. The Amish had always adapted, carefully and thoughtfully, choosing which innovations aligned with their values. Elon's recent presentation to the community had highlighted this truth. Rather than pushing for radical change, he had shown how simple innovations could enhance their way of life without compromising their beliefs. The solar-powered workshop tools he proposed would reduce their dependence on diesel generators, while maintaining their independence from the grid. Vanessa's camera followed Caleb as he approached Hannah's demonstration. The children parted respectfully, their eyes moving between their community leader and the young inventor. Hannah's hands stilled on her creation, uncertainty flickering across her face. But Caleb surprised everyone, including himself, by asking her to explain how the purification system worked. The moment captured the essence of their community's evolution, not a dramatic revolution, but a quiet acceptance of thoughtful progress. Eli's eyes gleamed with pride as his granddaughter explained the principles behind her invention, her words reflecting both scientific understanding and deep respect for their traditional values. This acceptance hadn't come easily for Caleb. It had required him to examine his own fears and prejudices, to question whether his resistance to change truly served the community's best interests. The process had been uncomfortable, like breaking in new leather, but the result was a more flexible and resilient leadership approach. As the demonstration concluded, Elon joined the group, his presence no longer causing the stir it once had. He had learned to move more quietly through their world, to listen more than he spoke. His relationship with the community had evolved from that of an outsider studying a curiosity to someone who genuinely sought to understand and learn from their ways. The sun was setting over the Lancaster fields, casting long shadows across the gathering. Vanessa's camera captured the golden light playing across faces both young and old, united in a moment of shared discovery. The scene embodied the delicate balance they were all learning to maintain, between preservation and progress, between tradition and innovation. What would this mean for their community's future? How would they continue to navigate the increasing pressures of the modern world while maintaining their distinct identity? These questions remained, but they no longer filled Caleb with dread. Instead, he felt a quiet confidence in their ability to face these challenges together, guided by their faith and strengthened by their willingness to adapt without compromising their core values. The autumn morning brought with it a peculiar stillness to the Amish community, as if nature itself waited to witness the unfolding of Hannah Zook's destiny. The young inventor's recent achievements had created ripples far beyond the confines of her simple world, touching lives in ways none could have predicted when Elon Musk first arrived in their community. Hannah's latest innovation, a sustainable water filtration system that operated without electricity, had caught the attention of several humanitarian organizations. The elegant simplicity of her design, born from the marriage of Amish practicality and modern engineering principles, offered solutions that neither world could have developed alone. But how would this recognition affect her place within the community? Eli Zook observed his granddaughter with quiet pride as she explained her invention to Vanessa Cho's camera. The documentary filmmaker captured Hannah's passionate descriptions, her hands moving animatedly as she detailed the system's workings. The elderly mentor recognized in Hannah's eyes the same spark he had carried decades ago when he secretly studied engineering, though her path need not be shrouded in the same secrecy. Elon Musk, standing at the periphery of the scene, found himself unusually contemplative. Through his time in the community, he had witnessed Hannah's evolution from a hesitant tinkerer to a confident innovator. Her approach to problem-solving challenged his own assumptions about technology and progress. What could the tech world learn from this fusion of simplicity and innovation? Caleb Miller's subtle transformation proved equally remarkable. The community leader who had once viewed Hannah's inventiveness with suspicion now spoke of her work with measured appreciation. His recent conversations with Eli revealed a growing understanding that preservation of their way of life didn't require rejection of all change. But how would the community balance these new possibilities with their cherished traditions? Vanessa's documentary, The Quiet Machine, had unexpectedly become a catalyst for dialogue between the Amish community and the outside world. Her careful documentation of Hannah's journey resonated with audiences who found themselves questioning their own relationship with technology and progress. The film captured moments of genuine connection between two seemingly incompatible worlds. But what would this exposure mean for the community's future? As Hannah's invention gained recognition, she faced decisions that no young Amish woman before her had encountered. Organizations offered opportunities for her to develop her ideas further, to help communities worldwide. Yet these opportunities came with complications that tested the boundaries of her faith and community ties. Could she find a way to share her gifts with the world while honoring her heritage? Eli and Elon's mentor-student relationship had evolved into something neither had anticipated. Their discussions now centered not on what each world could teach the other, but on how they might support Hannah's unique path forward. The elderly Amish man and the tech billionaire found common ground in their desire to nurture innovation while respecting tradition. What role would each play in Hannah's future? The community itself stood at a crossroads. Hannah's success had sparked conversations about how they might adapt while maintaining their core values. Young people looked to her example with hope, while elders cautiously considered what changes they could accept. Could they find a balance between preservation and progress? Vanessa's camera captured these subtle shifts in community dynamics, documenting moments of tension and resolution as they navigated this uncharted territory. Her lens revealed the complex web of relationships that would ultimately determine Hannah's path. The supportive guidance of her grandfather, the cautious acceptance of community leaders, and the unexpected mentorship of a modern-day innovator. Autumn deepened. Hannah's future remained unwritten, but the possibilities before her reflected a broader transformation. Her journey represented more than personal achievement. It symbolized the potential for bridging divides between tradition and innovation, between simple living and technological progress. What new chapters would unfold as she stepped into this unprecedented role? The answer lay not in choosing between worlds, but in finding ways to honor both. Hannah's story continued to evolve, challenging assumptions and opening doors for others who would follow. How would her choices reshape not only her own future, but the future of her community and the wider world's understanding of innovation? As autumn painted the Lancaster countryside in vibrant hues, Eli Zook spent his evenings in his workshop, meticulously crafting what would become his final gift to Elon Musk. His weathered hands moved with practiced precision across the cherry wood, each stroke of the chisel revealing the intricate teeth of a gear that would never turn in any machine, yet carried the weight of profound meaning. Vanessa Cho's camera captured the quiet determination in Eli's eyes as he worked. Though she maintained a respectful distance, through her lens she observed how the 87-year-old craftsman occasionally paused to run his fingers along the grain of the wood, as if reading a story written in its rings. These intimate moments would later become some of the most powerful sequences in The Quiet Machine. The relationship between Eli and Elon had evolved far beyond what either man had anticipated when the tech mogul first arrived in their community. What began as curiosity had transformed into a deep mutual respect, challenging both men's preconceptions about wisdom and progress. The wooden gear represented this unexpected connection, a bridge between two worlds that seemed impossibly far apart. Hannah Zook often sat quietly in the corner of the workshop sketching her own designs while her grandfather worked. She understood the significance of the gift better than anyone, having witnessed the gradual transformation in both men. Her own journey of reconciling tradition with innovation had, in many ways, catalyzed their unlikely friendship. When Caleb Miller visited the workshop one evening, his reaction surprised everyone present. Instead of his usual skepticism, he studied the wooden gear with genuine interest. The old ways of making things, he observed, they teach us patience. His words carried an unexpected weight, suggesting that perhaps the community's resistance to change was not as absolute as it had once seemed. Eli incorporated elements from both worlds into the gear's design. The traditional joinery techniques passed down through generations of Amish craftsmen merged with mathematical precision that would have made any engineer proud. Each tooth was carved to exact specifications, despite knowing the gear would never mesh with any modern machinery. Vanessa's documentary captured a particularly poignant moment when Eli explained to Elon the significance of the wood he had chosen. The cherry tree had stood on Zook family land for over a century, witnessing the arrival of the first automobiles, electricity lines, and now, ironically, the visit of a man who built electric cars. The tree had fallen during a storm the previous year, and Eli had saved its wood for special projects. The gear's creation became a metaphor for the larger narrative unfolding in the community. Just as each cut of the chisel revealed the form within the wood, each interaction between the Amish and their unusual visitor revealed new possibilities for understanding. The process required patience, precision, and most importantly, respect for both the material and the method. As news of the gift spread through the community, it sparked conversations about the nature of progress and tradition. Young Amish men would stop by Eli's workshop, ostensibly to watch him work, but really to discuss the broader implications of bridging two seemingly incompatible worlds. These discussions, always conducted in the humble setting of sawdust and wood shavings, carried the weight of generations grappling with change. The completion of the wooden gear coincided with the harvest season, when the community came together for shared labor in the fields. This timing seemed fitting, a reminder that while individual craftsmanship had its place, the strength of the community remained paramount. Even Elon, who had built his empire on disrupting traditional industries, found himself moved by the rhythmic simplicity of collective work. What would this symbolic exchange mean for the future of both worlds? Could a handcrafted wooden gear truly represent a path forward that honored both progress and tradition? As Eli put the finishing touches on his creation, these questions hung in the autumn air, waiting to be answered by time and the choices of those who would follow in their footsteps. The wooden gear stood as a testament to the possibility that innovation and tradition need not be adversaries. In its carefully carved teeth and smooth polished surface lay the promise of a future where the wisdom of the past could guide the advances of tomorrow. But would this promise hold true once Elon returned to his world of technology and rapid change? As autumn leaves painted Lancaster County in brilliant hues, the ripples of Elon Musk's unconventional stay among the Amish continued to resonate through both worlds. Vanessa Cho's documentary, The Quiet Machine, had captured the imagination of millions, sparking conversations about the intersection of progress and tradition that few had considered before. In her Philadelphia editing suite, Vanessa reviewed the final cut of her documentary's epilogue. The footage showed Eli Zook teaching younger children in the community schoolhouse, her methodology subtly incorporating the principles of engineering through practical crafts. The camera lingered on a wooden gear system the students had built, reminiscent of the one Eli had gifted to Elon. What struck viewers most wasn't the technical achievement, but the light in the children's eyes as they grasped concepts that bridged their world with the one beyond. Eli Zook's influence had grown in unexpected ways. While he maintained his role as community elder, his teaching approach had evolved to incorporate more hands-on learning experiences. The tension with Caleb Miller had transformed into a careful balance, with both men finding common ground in their desire to preserve the community's core values while preparing the younger generation for an increasingly complex world. Caleb's own journey proved particularly compelling to Vanessa's audiences. His initial resistance had given way to a nuanced understanding that strength could be found in selective adaptation. During one of the final interviews, he had shared a perspective that surprised many. Our ways are not about rejecting progress, but about questioning its purpose. Sometimes the newest path is not the wisest path. The documentary captured a moment when Elon returned to the community 6 months after his initial visit. The tech mogul arrived without fanfare, driving himself in a modest vehicle. The cameras followed as he sat with Eli in the workshop, their conversation flowing naturally between technical concepts and philosophical musings. The wooden gear Eli had gifted him had found a permanent place on his desk in Texas, a reminder of lessons learned about the value of simplicity and intentional living. Hannah's story emerged as the documentary's emotional core. Her innovations, once hidden in the barn's shadows, had become teaching tools. She maintained her Amish lifestyle while finding ways to express her technical creativity within its boundaries. Young women from other communities began seeking her guidance, creating a network of minds that proved innovation could flourish, even within traditional frameworks. Vanessa's film raised profound questions about progress itself. What did it mean to advance? Could moving forward sometimes require looking back? The footage showed Elon standing in a field at sunset, surrounded by fireflies, explaining how his time with the Amish had influenced his approach to sustainable energy and community-centered technology development. The most powerful scenes were the quiet ones: Eli teaching children about wind patterns using hand-carved weather vanes, Hannah demonstrating water filtration systems built from local materials, Caleb and Elon sharing a meal in comfortable silence. These moments illustrated how wisdom could flow in both directions when barriers of prejudice fell away. In the tech world, Elon's experience sparked a movement examining the human cost of constant connectivity. Some of his companies began incorporating quiet hours and tech-free zones, inspired by the Amish practice of creating boundaries around technology use. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, one of tech's most prominent figures advocating for selective disconnection. The documentary's conclusion showed a sunset gathering where the community shared a meal. The camera panned across faces both Amish and English, young and old, traditional and progressive. No one spoke about the changes that had occurred. They didn't need to. The evidence was in the easy way they passed dishes across the table, in the natural flow of conversation between different worldviews. As Vanessa put the final touches on her epilogue, she reflected on how this story had challenged her own assumptions about progress and tradition. The quiet legacy of this unlikely meeting of worlds wasn't in grand changes or dramatic transformations, but in the subtle shift of perspectives on both sides. It raised the question, in a world racing toward the future, what other wisdom might we find in unexpected places? The wooden gear continued to turn on Elon's desk, its handcrafted teeth marking time in a way no digital clock could match, reminding all who saw it that innovation isn't always about creating something new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering something timeless. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.